The Elemental by R. Chetwynd-Hayes.
"There's an elemental sitting next to you,"
said the fat woman in the horrible flower-patterned dress and amber beads. Reginald Warren lowered his newspaper, glanced at the empty seats on either side, shot an alarmed look round the carriage in general, then took refuge behind his Evening Standard again.
"He's a killer,"
the fat woman insisted. Reginald frowned and tried to think rationally. How did you tackle a nutty fat woman? "Thank you," he said over the newspaper. "I'm obliged." Then he tried to immerse himself in the exploits of a company secretary who had swindled his firm out of £30,000. He had not progressed further than the first paragraph when the newspaper shook violently, and a little pyramid formed just above an advertisement for Tompkins' hair-restoring tonic. He jerked the newspaper downwards, and it was at once skewered on the sharp point of an extremely lethal lady's umbrella.
"Look, madam," he spluttered, "this really is too much. And I really do think you should listen to me, ducks,"
the fat lady insisted, completely unmoved by his outburst.
"This is a particularly nasty specimen, a real stinker, and he's growing stronger by the minute."
Reginald stared longingly at the communication cord, but he had been conditioned from birth to regard this interesting facility as something never to be pulled, apart from which the old dear looked harmless. She was just batty.
"Have you been feeling weak, run down, rather tired lately?"
the fat lady inquired solicitously.
"Don't bother to answer that. I can see you have. He's been feeding on you. They do, you know, nasty, vicious things. I must say I haven't seen a homicidal one before. Sex-starved ones, yes, alcoholic ones quite often, but killers, they are rare. In a way, you are quite privileged."
"What?" Reginald felt he should display some interest, if only to humour her.
"What exactly is an elemental?"
The fat woman settled back and assumed the air of an expert, revealing professional mysteries to a layman.
"Generally speaking, it is a spirit of air, fire, and water. But the horrible thing that's attached itself to you is something that's trapped between the planes. It sort of lusts after the pleasures of the flesh. It sucks, yes, that's the word, sucks the juices of the soul. You follow me?"
Reginald was incapable of coherent speech. He nodded.
"Good."
She beamed, then fumbled in her handbag and produced a pair of spectacles.
"Let's have a butcher's."
She adjusted the spectacles firmly on her nose and stared intently at a spot immediately to Reginald's left.
"Ah, yes, my word, yes. Tut, tut. He's firmly embedded, I fear. His right arm is deep in your left shoulder. Ah, he's not happy about my interest."
She shook a clenched fist.
"Don't you glare at me, you dirty little basket. I've got your measure, me lad. Yes, I have."
A shocked expression made her lips pucker, and she hurriedly removed the spectacles and replaced them in her bag.
"He spat at me,"
she stated. "Oh dear, I am sorry." Reginald was completely powerless to subdue the urge to rub his left shoulder, and the fat lady smiled grimly.
"I'm afraid you won't rub him off, my dear. Not in a lifetime will you rub him off."
The train roared into Hillside Station, and Reginald greeted its appearance much as a Red Indian besieged cowboy welcomed the arrival of the U.S. cavalry. "My station." He pulled a suitcase from the luggage rack. "Thank you very much."
"Wait!"
The fat lady was fumbling in her handbag.
"I've got one somewhere."
She upturned the bag, and its contents tumbled out onto the seat.
"Oh, really, don't bother."
Reginald had the door open. "Must go."
"Ah!"
She produced a scrap of pasteboard.
"My professional card. Madame Orloff, clairvoyant extraordinary. Seances, private sitting, palmistry, full psychic service guaranteed. I can take care of your little problem in no time at all."
Reginald snatched the card from her outstretched hand and slammed the door, then sprinted for the ticket barrier. Madame Orloff jerked down the carriage window and shouted after his retreating figure,
"Special rates for 5 sittings and a bumper free gift of a genuine crystal ball if you sign up for 10.
Susan was waiting for him at the station entrance. She was dressed in a white and gold backless sunsuit. He instantly forgot the fat lady, banished the last lingering thought of the elementals to that dark world which had always lurked at the back of his mind, and drank in her cool beauty. The blood sang through his veins when he kissed her, and he wanted to say beautiful words, but instead said, "It was hot in town."
"Poor darling."
She slid her hand over his arm, and they walked slowly towards the car. "You look tired, but never mind. 7 lazy days in the country is what you need."
7 days of mowing grass, clipping hedges, hoeing and chopping wood."
He laughed, and the sound was young, carefree. "What have you been doing today?" She opened the car door.
"Get in, I'll drive." "Doing?" "Oh, cleaning windows, hoovering carpets, airing the bed, everything that's needed in a cottage that hasn't been lived in for 3 months. Did you remember to turn off the gas and lock the flat door before you left?"
He climbed in beside her and settled back with a sigh of content.
"Yes, and I cancelled the milk."
He closed his eyes, and the occasional beam of sunlight flashed across his round, pleasant face. "I shall sleep tonight. God, I feel tired. Drained dry, almost as if—" He stopped, opened his eyes, then frowned.
"As if what?"
Susan cast an anxious glance sideways.
"Look, don't you think you ought to see a doctor? I mean, it's not like you to be so whacked."
He forced a laugh.
"Nonsense. It's this hot weather and the stuffy atmosphere in town. No, give me 3 or 4 days of this country air, plus 3 square meals prepared by your fair hand, and I'll be raring to go."
The car shot out from under the trees, and the sunlight hit them like a blast from a furnace. Reginald opened the glove compartment and took out 2 pairs of sunglasses. He handed one to Susan and donned the other himself. "Bloody dangerous when the light hits you like that."
"Don't swear, darling. It's not like you." "I'm not swearing. Bloody is a perfectly respectable word these days." "But it doesn't sound right coming from you. You're not a bloody type."
"Oh," he grimaced, then sank back in his seat. Presently, Susan's voice came to him again.
"Darling, I don't want to nag, but don't hump your left shoulder. Makes me think of the Hunchback of Notre Dame."
He jerked his head sideways, and a little cold shiver ran down his spine. They swept round a bend in the road, and there was the cottage, nestling like a broody hen behind the neatly trimmed private hedge. Susan unlocked the front door, and Mr. Hawkins barked happily and reared up on his hind legs, begging to have his ears tickled. Down, you monster!" She patted his silky head, and then went quickly through the little hall and disappeared into the kitchen. Reginald said, "Hello, boy, how are you?" And Mr. Hawkins began to wag his tail, but after one or two cautious snips, turned and ran into the living room. "I think Mr. Hawkins has gone off me," Reginald said, on entering the kitchen where Susan was examining a roast that was half out of the oven. "About 15 minutes more," she announced. "What did you say?" "I said I think Mr. Hawkins has gone off me. Seems I don't smell right or something. Probably thinks you need a bath. Why not have one before dinner?" "Hey!" He crept up behind her. "Are you suggesting I stink?" She looked back at him, her eyes laughing. "If your best friend won't tell you, why should I? Be a good boy and go and have your bath." "Right." He shrugged as he turned towards the door. "Oh, don't! That hurt!" He stared back at her in astonishment. She was rubbing her right shoulder, her face screwed up in a grimace of pain. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play the innocent. You know darn well you hit me." "Don't be silly. I haven't touched you. Look, there's only 2 of us here, and I certainly didn't hit myself." "But I tell you, I was nowhere near you." "Well, it doesn't matter, but there's no need to lie." Reginald took a deep breath and made an effort to speak calmly. "For the last time, I did not hit you. I was nowhere near you, and I don't like being called a liar." Dinner began in an atmosphere that would have gladdened the heart of an Eskimo. A thaw set in when the sweet was served, and warmth returned with the coffee. "Darling," he murmured, "please forgive me. I didn't—" She interrupted him with a radiant smile. "Forget it. If a man can't beat his wife, who can he beat? No, but not another word. So what will we do after dinner? Watch television, read, or go to bed?" Let's take Mr. Hawkins for a walk, then pop in the plough for a quick one." "Okay." She began to collect the empty coffee cups. "I'll wash up, then we'll be off." Reginald got up from the table and slumped down in an armchair. Mr. Hawkins sat under the table and stared at his owner. Reginald blinked, then yawned as he spoke. "What's the matter with you?" The dog's usually placid, brown velvet eyes were fierce. His body was rigid, and even as Reginald spoke, he bared his teeth and growled. "What the hell?" Reginald sat upright, and instantly Mr. Hawkins retreated and took refuge under a chair, where he crouched, growling and watching his master with a terrible intensity. "Susan!" Reginald called out. "What the hell is wrong with this dog?" Susan came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, her face creased into an expression of amused inquiry. "Well, so far as I know, nothing. Why?" "Well, look at him." Reginald pointed at the snarling dog, who backed farther away under the chair until all that could be seen was a pair of gleaming eyes and bared teeth. Susan crouched down and called softly, "Mr. Hawkins, come on, boy." Mr. Hawkins ran to her, his tail wagging feebly, and he whimpered when she patted his head and stroked his soft coat. "Poor old chap. Has the heat got to you? Do you want walkies? Walkies, nice walkies?" Mr. Hawkins displayed all the signs of intense pleasure at this prospect, and performed a little dance of pure joy. "He's all right," Susan said, straightening up. "Well, he put the fear of God into me." Reginald rose. "He hasn't been normal since I arrived. Perhaps we ought to take him to a vet." "Nonsense, he's fine." Susan went out into the hall, and the dog scampered after her. "It must have been the heat that got to him. Do you think I need a coat?" No, go as you are. Shock the natives." Reginald grinned, then frowned when he saw a 6-inch-long mark that marred her right shoulder. "No, come to think of it, perhaps you had better put a jacket or something on. It may be chilly before we get back." She took a thin satin shawl down from the hall stand. "I'll wear this. There isn't a breath of wind, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a storm before morning." Reginald smiled grimly as he closed the door. Out in the narrow road, Susan took his arm, and they walked slowly under a steel blue sky. They left the roadway, climbed a little stile, and walked ankle-deep through lush summer grass as the dying sun painted the far-away hillsides golden brown. And Susan sighed. Heaven must be an eternity spent walking through an English field at sunset. And hell, Reginald retorted, must be eternity spent in a tube train during the rush hour. "Susan, did something really what?" He shook his head. "Nothing, forget it." No, tell me." "Well, it wasn't important." He patted the hand that lay on his arm. "Just a passing thought." The sun had set when they once again walked up the garden path, and a full moon lit up the cottage and surrounding countryside, painting the red-bricked walls, the little garden, with a cold silver hue. Susan was laughing softly, and Reginald was frowning. He looked tired and drawn. "Honestly, you must admit it was funny," Susan said. She inserted the latch-key, then opened the door that led into the hall. "That little girl." Yes, you've been through it 3 times already," Reginald snapped, but his irritability only provoked further laughter. Susan opened the living-room door and switched on the light, but in front of a crowd of beer-boozy layabouts. This little mite pointed at you and said, "That ugly man making faces at me." "All right, so it was funny. Now let's forget it, shall we?" Reginald slumped into a chair and absent-mindedly rubbed his left shoulder. "Oh, come on now." She sat on the arm of his chair. "Where's your sense of humour? She was only a little thing and probably tired out. I mean to say, you weren't really making faces at her, were you?" "Of course not." "Well, then, why so grumpy?" "I don't know." Then he spoke softly. "I honestly don't know." "Let's go to bed," she whispered, "and dream away the dark-footed hours." "Yes." He rose, then smiled down at her. She slid an arm around his neck and laid a soft cheek against his own. "You are the most beautiful man in the whole world," she said. He nodded. "Yes, I suppose you're right." Their laughter mingled when he carried her up the stairs, and Mr. Hawkins stood in the hallway and watched their ascending figures with worried eyes. The curtains were drawn back. The soft moonlight kept shadows at bay, and they lay side by side and waited for the silence to summon sleep. "Think of all the bunny rabbits peacefully asleep in their burrows," she whispered. "Are you sleepy?" "Somewhat." "Why do you insist on sleeping on the right side of the bed?" "Well, that's a damn fool question." He stirred uneasily and widened the space between them. "Because it's man's prerogative, I guess." There was a full minute of silence. "Darling, if you must hold my hand, don't press so hard." His voice came from the half-world, where sleep and consciousness hold an even balance. "I'm not holding your hand." "But, darling, you are, and you must cut your nails. Stop blathering and go to sleep." Suddenly, her body began to thresh wildly, and her cry of protest rose to a terrified scream. "Reginald, what are you doing? No! Oh, my God!" For a second, he imagined she must be playing some silly joke. Then the violent threshing of her legs, the choking gasps, made him sit up and fumble frantically for the light switch. As lamplight blasted darkness hurled it back against the walls, she leapt from the bed and stood facing him, gasping, massaging her throat, staring with fear-crazed eyes. He was dimly aware of a faint smell, sweet, cloying, like dead flowers. "What's wrong?" He climbed out of bed, and she backed to the wall, shaking her head. "Keep away from me!" "What the hell?" He moved round the foot of the bed, then stopped when he saw her expression of terror deepen. At that moment, truth reared up in his brain, but he ignored it, crushed it under the weight of disbelief, and he whispered, "You know, I would never do anything to hurt you." Her whisper matched his, and it was as though they were in some forbidden place, afraid lest a dreaded guardian heard their voices. "You tried to choke me. Awful hands with nails like talons, and a foul breath. I can still smell it." He could scarcely utter the next words. "Could that have been me?" "Then who was it?" "Get back into bed," he urged. "Please, I will sit on a chair. I won't come near you, I promise." The beautiful eyes still watched him as she moved to obey, but the moment her hand touched the pillow, she recoiled. "The smell, the stench, it's still here." They went downstairs and seated themselves in the living room, far apart, like strangers who may never meet again, and his voice bridged the great gulf that separated them. "There was a woman on the train. She said she was a medium." She waited for his next words, as though they were venomous snakes being offered on a silver tray. "She said I had an elemental attached to my left shoulder. Apparently it's feeding off me, growing stronger by the minute." Susan did not move, or betray the slightest sign she had even understood or heard what he said. "A few hours ago, I guess, we would have laughed at the very idea." Reginald was staring at the empty fireplace, even giving the impression that he was addressing it rather than the silent girl, who sat clutching her dressing gown with white fingers. "It would have been a great giggle, a story to tell our friends over a drink. But now—" They sat opposite each other for the remainder of the dark hours. Once Mr. Hawkins howled from his chosen place in the empty hall. Reginald found the card in his jacket pocket and read the inscription aloud. "Madame Orloff, Clairvoyant Extraordinary, 15 Disraeli Road, Clapham, London, SW4. He dialed the telephone number at the foot of the card and waited. Presently a voice answered. "Madame Orloff, Clairvoyant Extraordinary." Reginald cleared his throat. "My name is Reginald Warren. I don't suppose you remember me. We met on a train yesterday." "Yes, indeed I do." The voice took on a joyful tone. "You're the man with the nasty little E. I expect you want me to get cracking on the horrible little basket." "Well, Reginald lowered his voice. "Last night it tried to strangle my wife." "What? What's that? Speak up, my dear man. It did what?" "Tried to strangle my wife," Reginald repeated. "Yes, I expect it did. I told you it was homicidal. Now look, stay put. I'll have to belt down there. It's a bit of a bind, because I have 2 table-tapping sessions and 1 poltergeist on the books for this afternoon. Still, it can't be helped. Let me have your address." Reginald parted with his address with the same reluctance that he would have experienced had he given up his soul. "The Oak Cottage, Hawthorne Lane, Hillside, Surrey." "Right." The cheerful voice repeated the address word by word. "I'll be with you about 3. I wouldn't eat too hearty if I were you. He seems to be putting on weight if he's been after his little tricks so soon. You may have a materialization, although I doubt it at this stage. His main objective is to get inside you, take over. Do you follow me?" "Yes." Reginald swallowed. "I think so." "Good man. See you at 3. Can I get a cab at the station?" "No, but I'll pick you up."
Not on your Nelly." The voice assumed a shocked tone. "He'll most likely try to run you off the road if he knows I'm coming. I'll hire a car and add the cost to my bill, of course." "Of course," Reginald agreed. "Anything at all." Madame Orloff arrived at 5 minutes past 3. Madame Orloff arrived at 5 minutes past 3. She crossed her fingers and waved at Mr. Hawkins, who promptly made a bolt for the stairs. "Poor little dear," she said. "Animals always spot them first, you know. Animals and some small children. Now, let's have a butcher's." She put on her spectacles and studied Reginald with keen interest. My, we have grown. Yes, indeed. He's sucking up the old spiritual fluids like a baby at its mother's breast." She bent forward and sniffed, looking rather like a well-fed bulldog who is eagerly anticipating its dinner. "Pongs, too, doesn't he? How did he become attached to me? How did it become attached to me?" Reginald asked, aware that Susan was watching their visitor with an expression that was divided between horror and amazement. "I mean, I was all right up until yesterday." "Been in a tube train lately?" Madame Orloff asked. He nodded. "Thought so. That damned underground is packed with them during the rush hour. I once saw a bank clerk with 6 of them clinging to him like limpets. And he picked up 2 more between Charing Cross and Leicester Square. Wouldn't listen to me, of course." She turned her attention to Susan, who cringed as the heavy figure came towards her. "You're a pretty dear, and sensitive too, I fear. You must watch yourself, Poppet. Keep off animal foods, and I should wear a sprig of garlic if I were you. They can't stand garlic or clean thoughts. Think clean and religious thoughts, dear. Try to picture the Archbishop of Canterbury taking a bath. Now," she rolled up her sleeves, "let's see if we can get him dislodged. Sit yourself down, lad. No, not in an easy chair. This plain, straight-backed one is the ticket. And, Angel, love, will you draw the curtains? Light is apt to put me off my stroke." Reginald was seated on a dining-room chair. The sunlight was diffused through blue nylon curtains, and the room looked cool, peaceful, a place where one might doze away the years. Susan whimpered. "I'm frightened. Don't let her do it." "Hush, dear." Madame Orloff twisted her head round. "We must dislodge the basket, or he'll be at your throat again, as sure as a Preggers cat has kittens." She put a large, beringed hand on either side of Reginald's head and closed her eyes. "I don't follow the usual formula, so don't be surprised at anything I might say. It's just ways and means of concentrating my powers." She began to jerk Reginald's head backwards and forwards, while intoning a little rhyming ditty in a high-pitched voice. "Black foul thing from down below, get you hence, or I'll bestow a 2-footed kick right up your bum that'll make your buttocks come through your tum." She writhed, jerked, made the amber beads rattle like bones in a box, all the while jerking Reginald's head and pressing down on his temples, then gave vent to a roar of rage. "No, you don't, you black-hearted little basket. Try to bite, would you? Get out! 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 Get right out, or I'll bash your snout. Go right under, or get your number. No more kicks, or you'll pass bricks. No more crying, it's no use trying. Out-a-daisy! You're driving me crazy!" Madame Orloff snatched her hands from Reginald's head and flopped down in a chair, where she sat mopping her sweat-drenched face with a large red handkerchief. "I must have a breather, dear. He's made me sweat like a pig. I've tackled some hard ones in my time, but he takes the biscuit." She clenched her fist and shook it in Reginald's direction. "You can grin at me like a cat that's nicked the bacon, but I'll get your measure yet." She turned to Susan. "Get us a glass of water, there's a dear." Susan ran from the room, and Madame Orloff shook her head. "You'll have to watch that one. She's hot stuff, attracts them like flies to cow dung, if you get my meaning. She's soft and pliable, and they'll slide into her easily as a knife going into butter. Oh, you back already, dear? Mustn't run like that, you'll strain something."
She drank greedily from the glass that Susan handed her, then rubbed her hands.
Thirsty work, this. Well, as the bishop said to the actress, let's have another go.
She got up and once again took Reginald's head between her hands. Her face wore an expression of grim determination.
Now, dear, I want you to help me. Strain. That's the word. Strain. Possession is rather like having constipation. You have to strain. Keep repeating Old Bill Bailey to yourself. It'll help no end. Ready?
Reginald tried to nod, but was unable to do so due to Madame's firm hold, so he muttered yes instead.
Right. Strain. Strain, man. Old Bill Bailey. Coal black pussy, he's no Tom. His hat is up, so get you gone.
Madame raised her voice to a shout, and a large blue vase on the mantelpiece suddenly crashed onto the tiled hearth.
Strain, Old Bill Bailey. Come on, we've got him. Out, out, get your skates on. Out of the window, through the door. There's no marbles here, he'll keep you poor. Don't grind your teeth.
A chair went tumbling across the floor. Books came hurling from their shelves. A rug left the floor and wrapped itself around the ceiling lamp, and a cold wind tugged at the window curtains. Madame Orloff lowered her voice, but it was still clear, unexpectedly sad. Lonely wanderer of the starless night, you must not stay. It is not right. Blood is for flesh, and flesh is for blood. We live for an hour, then are lost in the flood that sweeps us away into fathomless gloom. We spend eternity in a darkened room.
Please stop.
Susan's voice was lost amid the howling wind, but then Madame Orloff's cry of triumph rang out.
Ha! Strain! Strain! He's coming out! Yes, he's coming out as smooth as an eye, leaving its socket. He's fighting every inch of the way, but old Ma Perkins was one too many for him. Out you go, my beauty, out you go, ha-ha, down to the land where the black mountains glow, with never-quenched fire and white worms crawling from the corrupt earth, even as maggots seethed from a carcass on a hot afternoon. Go, go!
The cold wind died. Hot air seeped back into the room. All around lay wrecked pictures, scattered books, broken furniture. Susan was crying softly. Reginald was white-faced, looking like a man who has survived a long illness. Madame Orloff rose, pulled open the curtain windows, then looked about with an air of satisfaction.
A bit of a ruddy mess, but then, as someone once said, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. 'Fraid my services do come a bit high, dear. I'll want 50 knicker for this little do.
Worth every penny. Reginald rose, somewhat unsteadily, to his feet. I can't thank you enough, madam. I feel like...
A feather, eh?
Madame Orloff beamed.
A great weight lifted off your shoulders. I know what you mean. I remember an old geezer down in Epsom. He had a nasty attached to him that was as big as a house. Ruddy great thing. Had a lust for rice puddings, and made the poor old sod eat 3 at a time. Well, when I got shot of it, he leapt about like a 2-year-old, said he felt like he was floating. Well,
she took up her handbag.
Mustn't keep that car waiting any longer. The fare will cost you a fortune.
She put a hand under Susan's chin and tilted her head. The blue eyes were bright with tears.
Cheer up, ducks, it's all over now. Nothing to worry your pretty little head about any more.
Well, you must stay for dinner, Susan said. We can't let you go like this.
Thanks all the same, but I've got a sitting laid on for 6 o'clock, so I'll leave you to clear up the mess. Don't trouble to see me out. I'm quite capable of opening and closing a door.
From the hallway, she looked back.
I should keep away from the underground during the rush hour, Mr. Warren. The place is a cesspit. Everything from a damn nuisance poltergeist to a vampire elemental. See you.
The front door slammed, and Reginald gathered Susan up into his arms. He patted her shaking shoulders and murmured, "There, there, it's all over now. It's all over." They sat in the twilight, younger than youth, older than time, and rejoiced in each other. "You are wonderful," she said. She snuggled up to him, and Mr. Hawkins dozed peacefully on the hearth-rug. Presently, "What's that?" Susan sat up. Fear was in waiting, ready to leap into her eyes. "Nothing." Reginald pulled her back. "Just nerves. It's all over now." "Well, I thought I heard someone knocking." "There's no one to come knocking at our door. No one at all." Mr. Hawkins whimpered in his sleep, and somewhere above, a floorboard creaked. "The wood contracting," he comforted her. "The temperature's falling, so the wood contracts." "Reginald," Susan said. She was staring up at the ceiling. "Madame Orloff, she got it loose from you, and I am grateful. But suppose—" Another floorboard creaked, and a bedroom door slammed. "Suppose it's still here." He was going to say nonsense, laugh at her fears, but Mr. Hawkins was up on his 4 legs, his coat erect, growling fiercely as he glared at the closed door. Heavy footsteps were on the landing, pacing back and forth, making the ceiling lamp shake, breaking now and again into a kind of skipping dance. Susan screamed before she collapsed into merciful oblivion, and at once the sounds ceased, to be replaced by a menacing silence. Reginald laid Susan down upon the sofa and crept on tiptoe towards the door. When he opened it, a wave of foul-smelling, cold air made him gasp. Then, with courage born of desperation, he went out into the hall and peered up into the gloom-haunted staircase. It was coming down, a black blob that was roughly human-shaped, but the face was real, luminous green, the eyes red. A bird's nest thatch of black hair, it was grinning, and the unseen feet were making the stairs tremble. Reginald, aware only that he must fight, picked up a small table and flung it straight at the approaching figure. Instantly, some invisible force, hurled him against the front door, and he lay on the doormat, powerless to move. The thing moved slowly down the stairs, and for a hell-bound second the red eyes glared down at the prostrate man before it clumped into the living room. The door slammed, and Mr. Hawkins howled but once. Minutes passed, and Reginald tried to move, but the power had gone from his legs. Also, there was a dull pain in the region of his lower spine, and he wondered if his back were broken. At last, the living-room door slid open and went back on its hinges with a protesting creak, as though wishing to disclaim all responsibility for that which was coming out. Susan walked stiff-legged into the hall, white-faced, clothes torn, but her face was lit by a triumphant smile, and Reginald gasped out aloud with pure relief. "Darling, thank heavens you're safe. Don't be alarmed. It flung me against the door. But I think I've only sprained something. Give me a hand up and we'll get the hell out of here." She moved closer, still walking with that grotesque, stiff-legged gait. Her head went over to one side, and for the first time he saw her eyes. They were mad, mad, mad. Her mouth opened, and the words came out in a strangled, harsh tone. "Life, life, life, flesh, 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 blood." "Susan!" Reginald shouted and tried to get up, but only collapsed as a blast of pain seared his back. He could only watch with dumb horror as she swung her stiff left leg round and began to hobble towards the broken table that lay on the bottom stair. She had difficulty in bending over to pick up the carved walnut leg, and even more difficulty in straightening up. But she gripped the leg firmly in her right hand, and the grimace on her face could have denoted pleasure. "You denied me life," the harsh voice said. "You denied me life." She, if the thing standing over Reginald could still so be called, looked down with red-tinted eyes, horror in ivory and gold, and he wanted even then to hold her, to kiss away the grotesque lines from around her full-lipped mouth, murmur his great love, close those dreadful eyes with gentle fingers. Then the carved walnut leg came down and smashed deep into his skull, and the world exploded, sent him tumbling over and over into eternity. Presently, the thing which had been Susan went out into the evening that was golden with the setting sun. It drank deep of the cool air, for storm clouds were pouring in from the west, and soon there would be rain. It went, stiff-legged, down the garden path and out into the roadway. There was still much killing to be done.